Well, good afternoon. It is Wednesday, and that means it's another session of Wednesdays with Wayne. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am ready. I don't know about you, but I am ready to get 2022 rolling. It's already rolling, actually. We know that. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend. We have some people I know that have been on Wednesdays with Wayne last year. We have a lot of new people. So thank you very much for coming on in and joining us. Very excited about this year. Very excited about the real estate industry in general. Let me give you a couple of thoughts before we start into the listing presentation, the material for today. As you all know, I deal with brokers and agents all over the country, and here's what I see going on in the industry right now. I see there's a concept called bifurcation, and that's what trees do. Specifically, it's what like an evergreen tree does, where at some point the trunk of the tree splits, all right, and bifurcates. And I think that's what's going on in our industry right now. I think we're going to see some bifurcation. And what I think is going to happen is this. I think you're going to have two types of real estate agents moving forward in 2022 and beyond. The first type of real estate agent is going to be the normal agent that everybody's used to. The agent that's not a professional, the agent that, I just saw the numbers come out from Inman News on Friday. We hit a new high, if you hadn't heard, I believe it was 1,615,000 realtors in the United States. That's a new high for us. That's not necessarily a good number, in my opinion, which means that the average realtor in the United States did 3.92 transactions last year, the lowest number that it's ever been. Okay. So I think as we start into 2022, a couple of things are going to happen. They got to realize those are year-end 2021 numbers. January is when everyone's dues are due. So it'll be interesting to see how many people drop out, how many people got in because they thought it was going to be fun to be a real estate agent. And then how many people decide, hey, it's not as much fun as I thought, and they transition out. The other thing that I think we're seeing happen is a lot of people did get into the industry. And they did take some business off the top, if you will, in the latter half of 2021, and that was simply just a fact of they weren't that good. But the reality was during the summer, let's be honest, you didn't have to be that good at this. We saw people not making any kind of a listing presentation whatsoever. We saw people walking into listings and saying to the sellers, what do you think it's worth? Well, I think it's worth this. Well, I certainly can't tell you you're wrong. And putting it out there on the market at that price, and boom, multiple offers, all of the things that we know went on. And then we started tail end, late third quarter into the fourth quarter, we started to see price reductions happen. And people said the marketplace is slowing down. And my comment was, I don't know if the marketplace is slowing down so much as much as it is that people just stopped making listing presentations, stopped even trying to figure out what anything was worth. Now, here we are in the beginning of 2022. We've seen a little bit of a rate increase from my clients that have a lot of online plays. We're seeing less traffic out there. You're starting to see listings have a little bit longer market time. Okay. And we have a whole generation of real estate agents in the field now. And we would call them at some point seasoned veterans. I mean, if you've been doing this 7 or 8 years, we would call you a veteran. And yet you've never seen a market that wasn't constantly on an upward trend. I'm in no way saying the marketplace is getting bad. The marketplace is awesome. There's tremendous opportunity. But what I will tell you is that your ability to have better conversations with people is back to the forefront. And that's why this year with Wednesdays with Wayne, we're going to slow everything down. The ultimate listing presentation, we're going to do in 4 sessions. All right. First one is today. We're going to just go over the dialogue once again. Again, those of you that have been through it before, you've heard this dialogue. The idea is that you get this dialogue ingrained into your presentations. Then our second session in 2 weeks will be on the pricing model That's going to be really, really important moving forward in the first half of 2022 and beyond as we reach some level of normalcy again. Then we're going to talk about value propositions, and we're going to add a fourth session to this where I'm going to do an actual live role play. I have some people that have agreed to do a role play with me, and we're going to set a camera up, and that session will be me going through exactly the dialogue and exactly the pricing strategy and exactly the value propositions that I'm going to give you over the first 3 sessions. So, and we're going to do that at every level of Wednesdays with Wayne this year. When we get into lead generation, I'm going to actually make calls. We're going to do it live. You can hear me making the calls using exactly the scripts and dialogues that I give you. I'm going to try to make this as user-friendly as we possibly can for you guys, because my passion has, as most of you know, has always been to try to help people raise their professionalism. And I know that the more professional you get, the more elite you become, the more you get your life back. And my personal quest has always been to make sure that at least my clients don't lose their life in the pursuit of being a real estate agent, and they're able to make the financial gains that they always wanted to. So that's kind of the overarching reason for Wednesdays with Wayne. But today, Ultimate Listing Presentation Part 1, which is dialogue. Guys, we are still in a scenario where dialogue is king. It is. It's more important than anything else. It's more important than your online plays. Your ability to have great dialogue is really what separates you in the field. Because I'm sure in your markets, there's agents that haven't been doing this hardly at all, have virtually no production. But if you saw them on Facebook, perhaps, or TikTok or Instagram, it would look like these people were just killing it. And then if you're, I know you guys do this because I think we all do this. Then you go look up their production and go, you got to be kidding me. But it looks really flashy. Well, at the end of the day, it's your dialogue. It's your ability to talk to someone, to slow that conversation down. That's what's going to truly separate you from the competition. That's also what is going to serve you very well moving forward. So with that huge opening, welcome to Wednesdays with Wayne, Ultimate Listing Presentation, Part 1, dialogue. Here we go. So why did I even start going down this road? I will just tell you that I changed my life becoming a great listing agent. I got my life back as a realtor becoming a great listing agent. I learned to control my time becoming a great listing agent. Listings are the ultimate leverage in the real estate industry. And here's the problem. Because of the internet, all right, because of the online portals, the Zillows, the whatever, the buyer that we're dealing with today is very, very well informed. But the seller still relies, as we sit here today, on their information coming from their agent, all right? While the buyer information is online, accurate seller information is still driven by our ability to sit down with a seller and interpret the numbers that we can pull and show the seller what they mean, right? As opposed to them looking at some online valuation. So just understand that our ability to have a great conversation and provide great pricing, which is still the key driver in which houses sell and which ones don't, that's still driven by us, by you as real estate agents. Secondarily, there's forces in the market. One of the sessions that we do is the immutable laws of real estate. So many agents out there in the field are unable to explain why things happen the way they do. And so because they can't explain why things happen, then they don't have value propositions that are built around how things happen. And ultimately, what ends up happening is you just start working cheaper. And this is what I think, this bifurcation that I'm talking about, this is what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to have great agents on one side, you're going to have cheap agents on the other side. Agent value is not information. That was the game way back in the day. We had the information and you couldn't get it. But today it's interpretation of the information that a seller already has. Trust me, when you go into a listing presentation today, sellers have already looked online. They've already looked at a Zestimate. They've already looked at various websites about value and things like that. Okay. So our ability is to slow this conversation down. Our value is to slow it down and interpret pieces of information at a higher level than the consumer can. Individual agents know we no longer control the information. We did away with that with syndication back in the very late, I guess it was like 2009, 10, something like that, 12 years ago. We started syndicating all of our information to the third-party portals, and we gave up control of the information. So now it's important as an agent, if you don't have the information, you have to control the physical inventory. Well, the physical inventory in our industry is listings. If you want a great life as a realtor, control the listing side of the equation. Third-party companies are seeking to get into control of the seller side, trying to put themselves between you and the consumer. Now, the pathway that they used to get there was the buyer side, right? If you think about it, it was easier to get the buyers to go to the portals than it was to get to the sellers. But trust me when I say the ultimate play for them is to get to the seller side of the equation, to get their valuation models better, to try to limit or diminish the value of the individual agent in the field. You can just click here, you can deal with us. You're seeing a lot now, not a lot, but one major player on television advertising, you should just deal with us because you'll save thousands of dollars. So the basic premise of today, and the basic premise of every market that we're ever in, is that every listing on the market, in any market at any time, is in one of three positions. Every property that's out there is in one of three positions. Position number one, the market value is lower than the asking price. Now, this is year in, year out. I've been in the real estate business, happy or sad to say, one of the two, 35 years. This has always been the case. You always have inventory that is the asking price is above what the property is really worth. Then you have market value and asking price being in harmony with each other. And then if you were in the business in 2008, 9, and 10, you saw that the asking price actually had to be below the property's actual value in order to get anybody to buy it. That was a marketplace that as a seller, 2008, 9, and 10, if you didn't have to sell your house, why in the world would you participate in that market? Now we're on the opposite side of the equation. Now it's a marketplace that people are wanting to participate in, okay? But as we stand here today, we're still in between these top two graphs. Let me try to explain in a little more detail what I mean by that. As we sit here today, 6 months ago, we were able to price things strictly on what everybody else was asking. Historical data, what things had sold for, carried a lot less weight 6 months ago. Okay, it's like, well, you know, for the last 3 years, houses have sold for X. It doesn't matter now because everybody's asking why, so we're just going to get up there with those people. I think what we're starting to see is we're coming down a little bit. It's historical data still doesn't carry the same weight as the asking price, okay, of what's out there, the current competition. But depending on price range, it can start carrying even more weight what people have been willing to pay. As you see market times become elongated, this is what's going on, is this bounce between the asking price being above market and properties being priced at the market. We started seeing glimmers of it toward the end of last year, where if you priced your house properly, you would get multiple offers, you would have all this going on. But all of a sudden, if you missed the price, you had nobody. A few months before that, even if you missed the price, you'd still get people looking at it. But all of a sudden, because buyers have all this information and they become smarter the more they go through it, okay? It's probably an over-explanation. But I want you to understand that right now, you have to give just as much weight to the current asking prices of property that's out there. And I want you to go back and start dealing with historical sales. Again, a few months ago, it was really pretty much about what people were asking for. So the basic question of today is, where is your current listing inventory? When you think about your current listing inventory, where is it? Do you have houses that are out there right now? Okay, do you have houses out there that you know they're overpriced? That you know now, based on market conditions, we're not getting the amount of money that we thought we were going to get. I would tell you, you have a duty to go back to those people, back to those sellers, and have a really serious conversation with them. It's a conversation that's driven by numbers. It's driven by how many houses have sold while we've been on the market, what they've been willing to pay. It's driven by the traffic. It's driven by all these things that I'm going to show you how to have these conversations with people, because you're going to have to. This is where this is going. We're going to start having these conversations with people again, and we have a lot of people in the industry that are ill-equipped to have that very serious conversation with sellers. So there's some rules every time we take a listing. There's just certain things that I think are in play. Number one, it's really not about us as real estate agents. And we saw this happen on Facebook, my gosh, so much last year, where realtors were posting pictures of houses saying, I sold this house in X number of hours with multiple offers. Tacitly, the message we were sending to the public was, you can do this on your own. I mean, the marketplace is so hot. You could just do this. So we started saying, hey, don't do that, right? Quit posting that way, right? So rule number one, it's not about you. This is about a seller. This is about their home, their personal residence, their principal residence, their largest investment most people will ever have in their life. This is not about you or your track record or what awards you have and plaques and all of that. This is about your ability to slow down and have a serious conversation with me as a consumer about my biggest investment. Number two, sellers don't mutate in the middle of a transaction. And what I mean by that is, people don't, if you get this dialogue down that I'm going to share with you today, and if you'll practice it, what you'll discover is you'll know exactly how a seller is going to react to different situations if you'll use this dialogue. In other words, sometimes people go, all of a sudden they just went wacky on me. No, it was always in there. You just didn't have a process to pull out. That's how they were going to react. Rule number three, sellers 100%, it's just people in general. We have selective hearing and we have selective memory. Sellers do not hear everything we say in the listing presentation. And sellers do not remember everything that we say in a listing presentation, nor do buyers, by the way. And that's why all of these very important things that we're talking about should be followed up in writing, so that we make sure that we have an agreement, a meeting of the minds, if you will, as we go down the road to assisting people with their largest single investment in most cases. And number four, I wholeheartedly believe listing property is a two-step process. I will tell you, in a competitive environment, 2 steps wins. If you position things properly, you'll be able to use that lever to win the listing if they're competing with people, if you're competing with other people. 2 steps beats 1 step every time positioned properly. And number 5, listing property has never been more competitive than it is right now. We know this. I'm not telling you something you don't already know, right? I mean, give me 20 new listings, I'm going to have a great year. There's more people fighting for listing inventory now than there's ever been. There's more people actively circle prospecting, which we're going to talk about in other sessions, trying to get that listing inventory. Everything that you say in a listing presentation is framed by information a seller has already gleaned from someone else or somewhere else. So why do you want to be a listing agent? It's really simple, guys. It's just leverage. It's the ultimate leverage in real estate. If you look at the numbers for any market, for any office, you'll find that the top earners in every market, every time, are more heavily skewed to the listing side of the equation than the buyer side of the equation. All right? Because when you get a listing, there is organic leverage that starts to happen with your business. Perhaps, and what happened was, in the marketplace that we were in 21, we lost some of the organic leverage. You didn't get a chance to hold a house open and perhaps pick up buyers off of it, or pick up other listing inventory if that buyer had something to sell, because they were selling too quickly. So you lost the organic leverage. We're going to start seeing a move back toward that. All right, to where we're going to get the leverage. Bottom line, here's how you come up with it. If you got a $200,000 house, and I know for some of you, it's like, that's like a vacant lot. But for a lot of the people that are on here, a $200,000 house is, it may be a little bit below average sales price. Maybe for some of you, it's above average. But if you have a $200,000 sale and you're a buyer's agent, you're going to make about $6,000 if they're offering a 3% commission. But if you have a listing and that listing sells, you have a $200,000 sale. If you sell it yourself, you have another $200,000 sale. If you take that seller out and they only move laterally, they don't move up, it's another potential $200,000 sale. And if you're able to glean leads off of a listing, you could pick up perhaps a cross sale. They don't buy that house, but they buy something else. All of a sudden, that's $800,000. It's $24,000. Listings are leverage. But if you want to be a great listing agent, you have to master a listing presentation. You have to master a skill set, guys. It can't be about, and I'll just tell you up front, it's not about some marketing plan, right? Hire me because of my marketing plan. Hire me because I'm cheaper. Hire me because I can sit down and talk to you about what you're trying to do and show you how the marketplace works. That's what I want you to be able to do. And you have to be able to master a presentation to be able to do that. Most important thing you can do for your career is to master a listing presentation. And the bottom line, I'll just go through this piece really quickly. Mastery is the key to everything. The more we work and practice to master things, the more we get our time back. The less activities we have to do. If you're really good at something, you don't have to do it as often to have positive results. All right? Than if you just kind of are mailing it in and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So your goal should be that you list a house every time you make a presentation in a competitive environment. That is the aspirational goal. Mastery would be that every time someone calls, I get the listing, it's always priced well, and I have a fabulous relationship with the seller. It's a great transaction. That would be mastery. I will tell you, mastery is somewhat fictitious. You're not going to get every listing you go on. All right? But I do believe that you can get about 8 out of 10 in a competitive environment. And the reason I believe that is I was able to do that. That when I was calling expired listings and people would interview more than one agent the second time around, I was able, with this presentation, to list the house 8 out of 10 times in a competitive environment. And the truth at the bottom is, if the quest is for more money and less time, then mastery of a listing presentation is key. If your quest as a realtor in 2022 is more money and less time, then mastery of the basics of this industry is key. In every area of life, mastery frees up your time. So let's talk unique selling proposition. Let's say that I come into your marketplace and I have a house to sell. And I'm going to interview everybody in your market. Now, that's obviously nobody's going to do that, but I'm going to interview 7 people. Why should I hire you? What do you bring to the table for me? What do you guarantee me that will happen if I list with you versus one of your competitors? What are those things that separate you, that differentiate you from anyone else? Price, I mean, we throw this around so much in our industry. Price is only an issue in the absence of value. So the question that you have to be able to answer is, why are you better than other people? What do you do? What guarantees will you make me that show that you're the person I should hire? Why should somebody hire you? These are the base questions that you've got to go off by yourself and just sit down with a pad of paper and write out why you're better, why I should hire you. And remember, if you don't know, the public isn't going to know either. You've got to be very specific, and you've got to avoid big words. All right. Now, what do I mean by big words? A lot of agents say, I'll communicate with you a lot. No, I want you to put absolute specific guarantees on how you're going to communicate with me. All right. I want you to be very specific about what you're going to do to sell my property. And I want to also know exactly the things you're not going to do to sell my property. Okay. So let's get into unique selling propositions for a little bit. Cancellation guarantee, I will tell you, is the number one, in my opinion, the number one value proposition for a real estate agent. To be able to look at a seller and say, you can fire me anytime you want to. It's like listing your house 24 hours at a time. If you're unhappy with the service that I'm providing, you can fire me, and it's in writing. That is a huge value proposition. Number two, the fact that, and there's a play in here that I will show you when we do the role play, what I call direct line sign calls. All right, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a big deal. When I call off of one of your signs, will I get you immediately, or will I be routed through a switchboard? That is a huge value proposition, because no one knows about your listings like you do. All right. This is, when we listen to Zillow calls, this is what happens with Zillow calls, right? Most of the calls that people get on Zillow calls are not calls on listings they have. They're on somebody else's listing. Well, that doesn't lead to a fabulous customer experience. That then creates a value proposition if you can fix that. Number three, are you circle prospecting around your listings? Are you going out trying to find buyers for your listings when you get them, or are you just going to throw it into multi-list like everybody else is? Do you have some kind of a feedback guarantee? And again, as we go through the next 3 weeks after today, we're gonna dig deeply and show you exactly how it works, exactly what the dialogue is, and we'll sum it all up in the role play. But you need to have some kind of feedback guarantee to your sellers. You also, I believe, need to call your sellers once a week and give them an update. It's a check-in. How you doing? Here's what happened over the last week. I think they should also get a report every 2 weeks that shows how the market might have shifted. One of the big concepts that sellers deal with, they don't know they're dealing with it, but here's what they deal with. They tend to operate in what I call a silo. Sellers tend to think that the rules that were in play the day that they listed their house are the rules forever, and they're not. The marketplace moves. The marketplace is incredibly fluid. It changes every day. I would contend that for everybody on here right now, your marketplace is different right now at 12:30 Central Time than it was at 8:30 this morning. There are new properties on the market. There are properties that have sold. There are properties that have expired and have fallen off the market. So the marketplace is constantly moving and morphing. A biweekly report helps you drive home that information to a seller. A reverse prospecting system where you can say, look, we may perhaps in my CRM already have some buyers that could be the first people that I could bring over. Because one of the things sellers want from us is they want to know that you're working to sell their house yourself, not that you're just listing it. The fact that you're Zillow Premier, that could be a value proposition. The fact that you're an individual agent is absolutely a value proposition. That if you hire me, you get me. The fact that you're a team is absolutely a value proposition. And there's ways to talk about each of the value that is brought to the table, whether you're an individual or whether you're a team. Individuals can compete with teams. There's no doubt about it. Teams can compete with individuals. There's no doubt about it. As long as we're willing to slow down and have these fabulous conversations with our clients. Your social media marketing could be a huge, unique selling proposition. Do you market properties better on social media than other agents do? You know, in a survey that I heard about this summer, over 90% of sellers were frustrated with the videos of their properties. They didn't think their agent was doing a good job with video. The fact that you use professional staging is a unique selling proposition. Actually, that's pretty much industry standard now. If we're going to talk staging at all, unless you're really, really good at it, you're going to bring professionals in to help stage. Professional photography, again, at one point was a unique selling proposition. Now it's industry standard. I will laughingly tell you that the greatest thing that ever happened to real estate sales is professional photography. And the worst thing that ever happened to real estate sales is professional photography, because sometimes you go into a house and it's like, oh my gosh, this does not look anything like the pictures. And that can be somewhat frustrating, which that leads us into working with buyers and how we should preview property more. Do you do just listed postcards? I mean, what's your game plan, right? What's your game plan for selling my property? And can you get specific with me on that? Past client and sphere marketing. The open house process. If you use open houses as part of your vehicle, do you target market to people that you already know might be a buyer for that house based on geography? I mean, if you have a larger 4 or 5 bedroom house, do you market to the neighborhood that is adjacent to that in the same school district, but is it 3 bedroom houses? Can you show me as a seller that I'm going to go specifically after these people because it's the same school and they have young families and they're growing and they need more room, but they don't want to change schools? Can you explain your process at a deep level? A top 100 marketing list that in addition to MLS, I'm also going to market your house to the top agents in town. There's a dialogue for that we'll get into. Your explanation of the actual selling process. Here's what you can expect to happen. One of the most apropos things that's ever been said is that relationships break down over a lack of checking off on expectations. And that's a big part of the dialogue that I'm going to show you in a second. Can you explain the process to a seller? As we list your house, here's what you can expect. Here's what's going to happen. Here's the way the marketplace works. Your market knowledge is massive, and your listing dialogue is the biggest. Do you have fabulous listing dialogue? So here's kind of how we're going to cover things. We've got a pre-listing phone conversation, a pre-listing appointment. You've got to do some homework and figure out the value. We're going to confirm the appointment. We're going to talk with the seller about what they've been through before. We're going to tell them one of 3 things is going to happen, uncover their important issues, ask for commitment, prioritize those, and then we're going to cover win, lose, and mutual expectations. That's the dialogue. We're going to get through this today. Okay, we may run a little bit over. Session 2, we're going to talk strictly about CMAs. Session 3, we're going to talk about a marketing plan. And in session 4, we're going to do a role play so you can watch and listen and ask questions. Step 1 is the pre-listing. Handling the initial call may do more to set you apart from the competition than any other activity. What we've now learning in the marketplace is that our old model of building rapport over time with people doesn't work anymore. If you're at an open house, right, and someone comes in and you have a great conversation with them and you discover that they have a house to sell, you need to immediately have a fantastic conversation with them about the selling process. And the key to this is to have a pre-listing questionnaire with you all the time. We're going to send these out to you again. If you've been through, you have them, and hopefully you're using them. If you were part of the Q&A that we did at the very end of the year, you heard some people on there saying and holding up the questionnaire saying, this is what I'm using is this questionnaire. All right. When you have someone who expresses a desire to list their home, always go to the questionnaire. It's a crib sheet question. It will allow you to have a better conversation than other agents are having with people. Print things off on bright colored paper or print them off and laminate them so that you have them at the ready all the time. Remember, it's nothing more than talking points. Here's a sample. Here's the one that we're going to send you, right? Print it off on bright colored paper. Put the listing questionnaire on bright colored paper or laminate it with a dry erase marker so that you can write it out. Here's the questions that I want you to ask sellers. There's no real order to this. Here's the key questions that you have to get in play. Do you have a price in mind right now for your house? A lot of agents are hesitant to ask that question. Ask it. There's only 3 possible answers. I think my house is worth X. I have no idea what my house is worth. I have an idea what my house is worth, but I'm not going to tell you. That just starts to give us some indication of the mindset of the person that we're dealing with. And if they say, I do have a price in mind, well, what would that be? And they may again say, well, I got a price, but I'm not going to tell you. Will you be interviewing any other realtors? Yes or no? For years, I've had people say, why would I even introduce that question? Guys, whether you ask the question or not, if they're going to interview people, they're going to interview people. And it's better for you if you know that they're interviewing people. And if they say, yes, I'm going to interview people, fantastic. Who are you going to be talking to? And whoever they say, be sure you say they're a great agent. That's awesome. I compete against them a lot. That's perfect. Way to go. I think everyone should interview. And then lastly, ask, how did you hear about me? What I want you to do is I want to set 2 appointments on the very first phone call. Set an appointment to get out to their house, take a quick look at it, and go ahead and set the second appointment at the same time. Now, the reason for this is simple. If you set 2 appointments on the front end, people historically will not cancel appointments. So a lot of times people go, well, what if somebody with a one-step process slips in? You've already set the second appointment. Okay, so the odds are pretty good they're not going to cancel. I used to try to get people to cancel the appointment. I couldn't get them to do it. All right. Again, crib sheet of questions that you're going to use every time a conversation goes down the path of someone has a house to sell. And then once we have this filled out, okay, and by the way, when you're having this conversation with you, you may very well not get it all filled out. All right. Again, the salient points are let me go back for just a second. Salient points are, numbers of bedrooms, bathrooms. Is it your principal residence? What kind of time frame are you thinking about? Do you have a price in mind? Those are the keys, right? The rest of this, you may fill it out now. You may fill it out when you go to the house, okay? Hand deliver a pre-listing package to your house. Now, if you're on here today and you do not have a pre-listing packet, the biggest action item I can tell you before the next session is start working on a pre-listing packet. Get something that's a pre-sale pack. It will do more to differentiate you in this process than a lot of things will do. All right, here's the reason why. It sets you apart from the competition because literally to this day, very few people have a pre-listing packet. It makes you appear extremely professional. Now, I know if you're on here, you are extremely professional. All right. It addresses common listing objections and it helps you to leverage your time. And there's a great marketing play when we get into prospecting techniques that comes from having a fabulous listing packet. There's so many different ways that you can use these things. So here's the dialogue. So you've called me. We've had the initial conversation. Perhaps I know you're interviewing 2 or 3 agents. I think that's fabulous. I said, what do you think your house is worth? And you said, well, I don't really know. Perfect. I go out. We're at the front door. I need to come by and take a quick look at your house. It'll only take 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm at the front door. As we tour your home, why don't you pretend I'm a buyer and show me around your home, pointing out what you feel are the selling features. Or if you would, show me around your house and tell me why you bought this one over the others you considered. And I would ask this even if they're a past client and you sold it to them. You see, this is an emotional deal for sellers. They have things that they believe are values, all right? Sellers historically will say, where do you want to start? And the answer is wherever you would like to. They will start with what they believe are the highest value items. Just as in most agents' listing presentations, we'll start with the things that, from a marketing perspective, that we think bring the most weight to the table. Okay? These are the things that they believe will increase value. And here's a key point, guys. Using the questionnaire, take a ton of notes. But try not to comment. Now, you'll comment. I'll just tell you, you'll comment. But try to not comment. Take lots of notes. Remember, the purpose of this visit is for you to see the condition of the home. It's nothing more than that. That you should be in and out of there in 15 to 20 minutes, and any longer than that is dangerous. And it's dangerous because they're going to start asking you questions. And if you're not prepared for those questions, you'll answer them. And their questions are always, okay, so what do you think my house is worth? And if you don't have this ingrained in you, you'll get scared and you'll throw out a number. And you'll never throw out a number that's too low. You'll always tend to throw out a bit, you'll pad it a little bit. This is just human nature, all right? So I want you to work really hard, okay, over the next 2 weeks before the next Wednesdays with Wayne. I want you to role play this dialogue with a partner. I really, really do. This this is where this really starts to take on a new meaning. If you'll take this information and you'll start to role play it and you'll practice it, then you'll be extremely confident when you get into the field. But anyway, 15 to 20 minutes, you're in and out. You're just looking at the house. You're trying to see the condition of the house. You're asking the question. You're seeing what the seller thinks, where the seller believes the value is. You're also seeing what the for lack of a better word, the smells of the house are. Do they have a pet? Does it smell like their pet? Are they smokers? Does it smell like smoke? How are you going to deliver that message in the listing presentation? What's that dialogue going to look like? And it does not come now. Do not make any comments at this point. At this point, you're just looking to see the condition of the house. And when you leave the house, you're going to hand them the pre-listing packet, and you're going to give them this really quick explanation. Here's a packet of information that tells you more about me and the way that I work. In the back is a questionnaire. Please fill it out prior to our next meeting, tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon, tonight, whenever it is. It'll be the basis for our conversations. There's also a seller's listing disclosure. Now, if you could fill that out as well, that would be fabulous. And then you leave. Here's the questions that I want you to put in your pre-listing packet. All right? And we're going to go through these, but have you ever been through the home selling process before? Is it easy or hard, and all these various things? I want you to give this to them in writing, ask them to fill it out. Here's page 2. All right? Bottom line is, very few people will fill this out. I will just tell you up front, very few people will even look at your pre-listing packet, and that's okay. It's the packet and it's the questions that separate you at the very first level from the other agents I've talked to. I will promise you guys this, I'm very passionate about this. If you get this presentation down, the old adage in real estate was, if somebody's interviewing 3 people, I want to be the last person. I will tell you that if you get this dialogue down, it doesn't matter whether you're first, second, third, 89. If you're the first person they talk to, and you have this dialogue that we're going to go through, your presentation will frame how they look at every other agent that they talk to. If you're the last person they talk to, they will rethink the presentations of the other people, because your dialogue will be that much stronger. Your professionalism will be that much higher. And again, overarching comment, this is where the industry is heading, and it's heading there quickly. And we had this perfect storm of a lot of business going on, and there's things playing out behind the scenes as far as consumer behavior go. Call back and confirm the appointment.
When we have a question come through.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
Someone would like to know if the potential seller becomes impetuous during this process and really pushes you to come up with a value, how would you respond?
So if that's going to happen, it happens normally, it'll happen it'll back at the front door as you're leaving. And as you're getting ready to leave, they'll say, okay, what do you think? Here's the dialogue. You know what? I don't know. But I promise you tomorrow when we get together, I'll be able to tell you exactly. If I give you a number right now, I'll be shooting from the hip. And if I shoot from the hip, I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot. So please just give me the time till our full meeting. And I promise you, not only will I come in with a value, but I'll also come in with a marketing plan and exactly all the steps that we need to do together to sell your house. Is that fair? That is a dialogue I always have used with people, and it worked every time. I never had somebody go, no, you tell me right now what it's worth. If somebody really stays on you about that, now you just know that you're dealing with someone that they're going to call all the shots throughout the process. Okay? So I hope that helps. On your way out the door, if they're going to ask the question, that's when they'll ask it. And it's, hey, any number I give you, it'll be just a total blind shot. And I don't want to do that. Give me till tomorrow, whatever the next appointment is. I'll tell you exactly what the house is worth and what the marketing plan needs to be based on the market conditions at this time. Okay? Then call back and confirm the appointment. Just make sure that that second appointment was exactly the same time that the first that you wrote down. Make sure they have the same, that you have an agreement or a meeting of the minds. Step 2 is the presentation. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And Thomas Jefferson said, nothing gives one man more control of the other than to remain cool and unruffled in all circumstances. I want you to be cool and unruffled in every listing presentation that you ever do from this day forward. The truth is, somebody's really passionate about the value of the home. The problem is, most of the time, it's the seller, not the agent. The agent wants a listing, especially in this market that we're in. And I want you to be able to defend your price at every possible angle. Remember, the seller only has to defend theirs with emotion. It doesn't have to make any sense. You have to be prepared to defend your price, or the price, the proper price, logically, and from every possible angle. Another point is, nobody wants to be told what to do. Everyone wants to have input into decisions that affect them. And there is no bigger decision for most Americans than selling their home. You have to create an environment that welcomes questioning back and forth. If you're a newer agent in the field, your ability to do this allows you to compete against every top agent in the field. Because most of the really tip-top agents, right, honestly, because I've competed against them, most of them do not have this kind of dialogue now. They are going on their track record, and they're walking in basically saying, look, I sell a ton of houses, here's what it's worth, and it's worth that much because I say it's worth that much. And if you can get this questioning down, you're going to get to the same point, but it feels so much better for the consumer. If you're doing the presentation in the office, which I would recommend, you've already seen their house, you don't really have to go back out. See if you can start getting people to come in the office. Now, we're in a COVID world. We're in another big bump in COVID with the new variant and all of those things. Perhaps this needs to be done over Zoom. Whatever the situation is what it is. All right. But if you're going to have, if you're in a marketplace where people are, mobile and are coming into offices, I would suggest you do it in the real estate office rather than at the kitchen table. Mainly just because traditionally everybody does kitchen table, and what we're trying to do is differentiate you from other people. Starting the conversation. All right, here's the really cool part of this. I'd like to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. You guys got a great house. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever sold a home before? You've got to get this question on the table, guys. Have you ever sold a home before? And the reason for it is this. If you've done anything in your life before, this will frame how you look at everything that I say moving forward, because you've done this before. You have something going through your mind based on your past experiences. Those of you that know me well, when I say this, few of you have heard this story. Something that happened to me last week. For the first time in my life, I went to the wrong airport last week. I was in Washington, D.C., and there's two airports that are served by Washington, D.C., Dulles and Reagan. I had booked a flight to Reagan. I actually went to Dulles. It's kind of a funny story, but I will tell you this. That will never happen to me again. Why? I will scour that boarding pass to make sure I'm at the right airport, because I had this experience before, and I don't ever want to go through that again. If people have sold homes before, their past experiences will help frame how they look at everything that you say. So tell me about your experience in selling a home. Was it a good experience or was it a bad experience? In fact, tell me about every experience you've ever had selling a home. I'd like to know about them all. How many times have you sold a house? Well, Wayne, we've moved 5 times. Tell me about the first one. Was it good or bad? What made it good? What made it bad? What did you enjoy? Tell me about the second one. And if you can get people to start talking like that, they will build your presentation for you. If someone says, hey, we've never sold a house before, it's our first time. Well, do you have any friends that have sold their house? What did they tell you about their experiences? Did they tell you to watch out for any particular thing? Or do you have any preconceived ideas about the sales process? It's really, really important that when we start talking to people, that we figure out what's going on in their head. So the big three questions that I want you to then get on the table is, well, based on your past experiences of doing this, would you say selling a house is easy or hard? Do you think it takes a long time or it shouldn't take very long? And do you think there's a lot of negotiation that goes on or a little? Now the answers to these questions are going to move based on overall markets. So in the marketplace that we've been in, it's like, do you think selling a house is easy or hard? Well, I think it's pretty easy. Everything that I'm noticing is flying off the shelf. What do you think it takes a long time? Well, it doesn't right now. Everything's selling. I see all these Facebook posts from all these realtors. Things are selling very, very quickly. Do you think there's a lot of little negotiation that goes on? Well, all I keep seeing on Facebook is things are bringing more than people are even asking for them. So I want to make sure that we ask enough. See, at this level of conversation, you're trying to figure out what's going on in their head, their baggage, if you will. So there's two things at play. One is their past experiences. One is the information they've received from Facebook, TikTok, Wall Street, wherever. And that frames everything how they perceive everything you say in the conversation. And so you're going to go three deep with all of these questions, right? So what I mean by that is, do you think selling a house is hard or easy? Well, I think it's pretty easy. Why do you think it's easy? What do you think makes it easy? Well, the marketplace seems to have a lot of steam. All right. Now I'm pretty clear that's what you're thinking. I had a gentleman one time that said, I think it's easy for you. I go, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? That's the second level. Well, I mean, you guys just put a sign in the yard and you wait. So I knew right then that I was going to have to, when I got into the marketing side, really slow down and show him, if I was going to get this listing and protect my fee that I wanted to charge, I'm going to have to show him exactly, specifically what I do to sell his house that he can't do on his own. If you don't ask these questions, you're guessing. You're guessing as to what people want. So these questions are huge. Huge point. Thomas Jefferson said, nothing gives one man more advantage over the other than to slow down or than to maintain, I can't even quote him, to remain cool and unruffled. Your pen is your friend. Get in the habit of taking tons of notes. That will slow the conversation down. As you're writing, people will continue to talk, and they will unveil another layer or two of the proverbial onion. Okay? That's why taking tons of notes throughout this entire process is so cool. And as you're writing down the notes, you're formulating your next question to make sure that you're crystal clear on what they're talking about. Now we're going to change up the conversation again a little bit. Hey, at the end of tonight, one of three things will happen. First, you'll list your home with me, and that would be fabulous. Secondly, you know what? I know you're interviewing with other people. You might choose to list your house with them, and to be honest, that wouldn't be so great for me. Or the third thing that could happen is I might not be able to take your listing. Now that may sound strange, so let me explain. As we visit here tonight, we may come across a need or expectation that you have that I know I can't meet. And if we reach that point, I may be unable to take the listing. Does that make sense? Why is this so important? Because you're telling the seller in a very polite way that, like, look, if you're out in left field on what this is worth, or if I determine through this process that you're going to be rude, nasty, demanding, yell at me all the time every time I call you, I may just politely back out of this thing. Right? In its abrupt way, it would be like, look, if you're not going to do your part to sell this house, I'm going to leave. And that's a little abrupt. So we're going to frame it a different way. Same message, said differently. You got to stay totally neutral as you start to ask these questions. It is not the time to address each specific issue. It is the time to take notes and continue to dig deeper with your questioning. So in this process, what I want you to try to get down is you're not making statements. You're just asking a tremendous number of questions. So here's the first question. What's the most important issue to you this time in the sale of your home? In other words, what has to happen for you to consider the sale of your home a success? Be watchful for the first thing to say, I need to get my price. Sellers will tend to lead with price. That will tend to be their number one thing. And then the process of going 3 deep says, I continue to ask you questions until I discover the real answer. So if someone says, well, I need to get my price. Okay, would you share with me what your price is? No, I'm not prepared to tell you that yet. Or you might say, I know when you had the initial phone call, you said you had a price in mind, but you didn't want to tell me at that point. Are you comfortable telling me what the price is now? And some people will tell you, and some people will go, no, I want you to tell me what you think it's worth before I tell you. Okay, right? Most people, they'll tell you the price, all right? And then the follow-up is, well, what's important about that price? Why did you pick that number? And sometimes they'll say, well, I heard John down the street sold his for that, and I think I've got a better house than he does. Or I had an appraisal on it 2 years ago, and I know property's gone up 15% in value. In other words, once again, what we're trying to figure out with this process is what's going on in the seller's head. How are they looking at everything that we're saying? Well, what else could we add to the process to make it even better? And historically, people will answer the timing. I'd like to have this done in the next 2 months. Well, what's important to you about having it done in the next 2 months? Well, that's because of this, that, or the other. All right. And by the way, when you say 2 months, do you mean you want to have a contract in 2 months, or you want to be sold and closed in 2 months? Because let's be honest, that's 2 completely different mindsets, right? So again, we're just going to keep slowing this down and writing down their answers and making sure that you're crystal clear. The third thing, well, what else is important to you? What's that third thing that we could add to the equation to completely knock this out of the park? What's that thing that the next time someone says, tell me about your experiences in selling a home, you're going to say, well, the last time we did this, it was fabulous. What else could we add to make it even better? Always write down their answers and read them back exactly as they have said them. Your goal is to get them focused and to find their most valued criteria. So I will tell you up front, people will tend to lead with price. The second one will tend to be timing. The third one is a total wild card. And I've told this story before. It's a great story. It really happened to me. I'm talking to a couple. I had sold them the house, and we're in the office. I just started this process. And the first thing they said was, we'd like to get our money back. We need X for the house. And we dug into that, and that made sense. And then they gave me a time frame, and that made sense. And we went to the third thing, and I said, what else is important? And the wife looked at me. She said, I want a really nice family to buy our house. And the husband said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody say. And she turned to him and went off about how he didn't know the neighbors, and he got up every morning and went to work, and it got kind of ugly. And that she had decorated this house, and she knew the neighbors and he didn't, and she wanted a really nice family. And he said, that's still the dumbest thing I've heard anybody say. And at that point, I didn't know what to do. Luckily, we were in the office, and I said, y'all need a minute. And I left the conference room, literally. It's a true story. And I stood outside waiting for them to argue this out back and forth. And then I went back in, and I was like, well, so what's that third thing? And the husband laughingly looked at me and said, we want a really nice family to buy our house. Now, the reason I tell that story is this. A, because it really happened, and I think it's funny. And B, because there is a concept called triangulation, okay? And that's where, and I always tell people 3 is a really bad number. Most listening presentations, you have 3 people in there, all right? And some of the sales training that has been out there forever is when you're a real estate agent and you get to sitting down with sellers and buyers, you figure out who the decision maker is and you focus in on them. And that's just wrong. I would just tell you that's an incorrect strategy, because you're going to get triangulated. If you saddle up next to one person, now the other person feels left out. Now it's 2-on-1, and then you flip again, and it's 2-on-1. If you have children, you know what I'm talking about. If you have a child and they want to have kids spend the night, and you have 2 kids spend the night, someone will end up crying before the night's over because they got triangulated. So either have 1 kid spend the night because you all are going to get along fine, or you have 3 kids spend the night because then it's 2 and 2. In a listing presentation, normally there's 3 people. You don't want to be triangulated. This conversation, making sure you're engaging both of the sellers in this conversation, turns those 2 people into 1 person. Because if they're not on the same page on their goals and the process, you're probably not going to get the listing. This is relatively high-level dialogue. Takes a lot of practice to get there. Always write down their answers and read back to them exactly as they've said them. Your goal is to get them focused on their most valued criteria. And then you simply would say this: if I can show you a way to satisfy these 3 things, would there be any reason you wouldn't hire me to represent you? And at this point, you're looking for, well, I'm thinking about trying this myself this time, or, you know, my buddy at work, his wife just got her license, and maybe I'm going to have to talk to them. I don't know. I mean, they said they do it cheap or whatever, just getting them to play their hand out. Never push. Your goal is to allow a seller to self-discover what working with you is going to be like. Like, look, I'm going to ask you a ton of questions. I'm here to help you do what it is you want to do, so I need to know exactly what it is you're wanting to do. Then we're going to cover expectations. We're going to change gears for just a second. What do you expect out of the agent that you hire? I mean, what's the number one thing that agent better do? What could I expect from you as a seller? The number one answer here is I'll keep the house clean. How does someone win with you? If we're working together, what must I make sure I always do no matter what? How does somebody lose with you? What must I make sure I never do no matter what? How do you prefer to communicate? We have evolved in our industry, sadly, into text messages and emails. And what I would tell everybody on here is the more we text and the more our communication with our clients is text and emails, the more your value proposition is being diminished. It's hard to be my trusted advisor if I don't ever talk to you. So you need to ask people, how do you prefer to communicate? On a scale of 1 to 10, how honest do you want me to be with you? And not everybody will say 10. A lot of people will say 8 or 7. And then you have to say, well, what's an 8? An 8 is I want you to be honest, but I want you to be nice. And when we go through this process, to test this out. Test this out in virtually, not just in listings, test it out with buyers, test it out with anybody you come in contact with that's trying to make a big decision. This dialogue is killer. Comes out of a book called Top Grading by a gentleman by the name of Bradford Smart. It's a book of interview questions. It's a book that I stumbled into 20 odd years ago. But because we are still in an industry that, as we stand here today, is nose to nose, chin to chin, face to face, and voice to voice, great dialogue that engages the consumer into the process wins every time. It will serve you so well if you get this piece of the puzzle down and everybody that you deal with. Start asking these questions of everyone. I mean, the 1 to 10 question has just become so ingrained in me now. When someone asks me something like, all right, hang on a second, 1 to 10, how honest do you want me to be? Or 1 to 10, with 10 being this is an outstanding situation you're in right now, and 1, you can't figure out how to get out of it. Where would you put this thing? Or for a real estate agent, how would you rate your career on a scale of 1 to 10? I mean, it's just a great way. It's a great conversation starter to find out what's going on in someone's head. The truth is, every relationship in life breaks down over a lack of having this conversation with people. If we don't check off on expectations, I have something running through my mind that I expect, and you don't know what that is, and you may or may not deliver it to me. But if you can bring expectation dialogue to the table, it's massive. The bigger truth is it doesn't just happen. You got to go there. Let's be honest, this is not a conversation that you just, until you've done it for a long time, it's not a conversation you naturally have with people. I've got a situation going on right now, and I was on a Zoom meeting on Sunday, and I made the comment. I go, look, if this is how it's going to be, please change the documentation that you sent because it set an unrealistic expectation of the process. If you tell me on a printed piece of paper that I will receive a phone call day 1, and I'm on day 4 and nobody's called me, they're like, yeah, we've been really busy. Sorry. change your printed document to tell me I'll get a phone call within the first 72 hours, and now I'm good. But I was expecting a phone call day one, and we're now day 4. Every relationship breaks down over a chat or over a lack of having this conversation. I asked you a few questions of what you expected from me and what I could expect from you, and I've got my own list. I go through this with every seller, and I would tell you guys, you have your own list. You have things that you believe sellers can expect from you, and you have things you believe they can't. And I would tell you to have your own list, and I would walk through it with people. You can expect me to be honest with you, to look out for your best interest, to continually and constantly market your property, all of those things that you see listed there. Create your own list. What can I expect from you if I'm dealing with you? What can I not expect from you? What do you expect from all of your sellers? What do you not expect your sellers to do? Have a list and go through it. Also, this should be in your pre-listing packet. The expectation should be in your pre-listing packet. We'll talk pre-listing packets as we get into the value proposition side, and we'll walk through page after page of potential value propositions and how I would suggest that you do those. Okay? Guys, expectation dialogue in every new relationship is massive. It eliminates a lot of stress, and we're dealing with one of the most stressful events in most people's lives. And then at the end of it, because you have this great list, here's what I will promise you: whatever your list is, it's going to match up with the sellers every time. And you're going to get to say this with every single seller. I don't know about you, but I think our lists match up, because these are all the things that sellers have always wanted from us as a profession, and we've been lax in delivery of it. I mean, there's nothing magical on here. I expect you to be honest with me. In fact, most people will say, when you ask, how do I win with you? Will be, shoot straight with me, Wayne. All right, well, you said you wanted me to shoot straight with you. I will promise you, I'll always be very honest with you. Always look out for your best interest. Call you within 48 hours of every showing. That's so different than, we're going to talk a lot. Don't worry, I'll keep in communication with you. You can expect me to return all your phone calls. And then I would go to a layer deeper than that, and I would say, you can expect me to return your phone call at a minimum by the end of the business day. You can expect to talk to me at least once a week, or talk to a team member once a week if you're running a team. You can expect us to handle all the details, handle everything professionally. You get the idea, right? I want to ask you what you expect from me, and then I'm going to show you what I think you can. And if there's a match, we should do business. And if there's not a match, we've now come to that point that I referenced earlier. You have a need or an expectation that I can't meet, and I don't think we should work together. That expectation could be, you expect me to answer the phone every time you call me. Well, that's unrealistic. You expect to be able to call me at 10 o'clock at night. That's unrealistic. You expect X number of dollars for your house, and there is no way we're going to get to that number. That's unrealistic. And I will politely bow out right now. It's key dialogue, guys. Key dialogue for life. Once you have an agreement that you want to work together and you have common expectations, it's time for the next step. And now we're going to talk about pricing. See, we're not going to talk about pricing until we know we want to interact with each other on a regular basis as humans. This is the same thing that I go through with my clients. We have a conversation about what you're looking for from my side of the table. What do you need help with in your business? Let me see if that's something I can even do. And if we agree that we're of like mind, now we'll talk about what the fee structure is, right? Pricing does not fix things. We want to start with expectations, then we go to pricing, and then the third level, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks, is now that we agree on pricing and we agree that we like each other, what are you going to do to sell my house? So here's the thing: we're going to talk pricing in 2 weeks. All right. I'm asking you, I'm begging you guys. We're going to send you all these materials. Start ingraining this into your listing presentation process. Start practicing this dialogue. Practice it with your spouse. Practice it with your kids. They'll enjoy a good old role play. As I've said in other sessions before, I firmly believe this. This is your chosen playing field to be elite. You're no different than the elite athlete. Got to practice the key things that you need to do. And if we don't practice it, then we're practicing in the field with real live clients. And we're so afraid of saying the wrong thing because we don't have it internalized that we end up saying nothing at all. We dance around, we talk in broad brush. Well, I don't know, it might be this. No, I want a true professional. I want a true advisor who's going to tell me exactly what to expect. All right. So I will see you guys again in 2 weeks, February the 9th, 12 o'clock Central Time. So we'll do part 2, and that'll be the pricing strategy. And it is different than the way most people price property. All right. So with that, sorry we went over a little bit today. Maddie, if you'll open up the floor for questions, we'll handle whatever questions people have.
As always, you all are welcome to use the raise your hand function, and I'd be happy to give you permission to speak. Or if you would like to submit your question in the chat function, I'm happy to read it on your behalf. But we can give you guys a couple of minutes to see if you all have any questions.
And if anyone has, if you were in previous sessions and this is maybe your second time through some of this information, my question to you is, have you used this in the field? And, raise your hand or tell us what your experience has been as you've gone down this road with this dialogue. What have you run into in the field? And we've got a Remax Energy raised hand, I see.
You probably get into that.
Okay.
Is that us?
Yeah, that's you.
Okay. Wayne,
Yes.
hey, I'm curious if the objection is price, like you're talking about at the very end, and their price, what they think they can get out of the property is higher than what we know can be brought out of the property. Do you delve more into that and try to attack that at all and objectively, bring them down, or is it just something that if they're stuck there, you just walk away from it?
So let me ask a question. So it depends on when it comes up, right? So if in the very beginning, and I say to you, hey, what's the most important thing to you in the sale of your house? And you say, well, I got to get my price, right? And I say, okay, well, what is your price? And you tell me some outlandish number, right? Then the 3D process would say, okay, hang on, why that number? And what we're trying to do is get them to defend what they told us. Okay. Well, I got to have this because I got to have that much money to be able to go buy my new house.
Right.
Okay. Or I heard so-and-so down the street got that, and I know my house is better than theirs. Okay. Now I just know how you came up with the number, and it's not logical. I'm not going to challenge you at that point. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and work through the process. And I'm going to challenge you then when we get into the pricing, I'm going to tell you what it's worth. That's when I start talking about the reality of what your house is worth. You don't do it in the very beginning of the process. You don't challenge people at all with their answers in the beginning of the process. Mm-hmm. Does that help, or does that make it more confusing?
No, I mean, yes, I was just curious at the end, and you're saying you'd objectively try to just put the facts out and why, and defend why the home is worth. In the pricing, the second piece of this, which is pricing, we're going to refer back to the things that they told us in the very beginning. And I'm going to say, look, I know that you said you wanted X for your house. Here's how I ran my CMA. And a lot of this is the strategy of what I'm going to propose, how you come up with a market analysis. And that is that you run a very broad price range. So you give them every chance to get the top dollar. Because these things will settle out at about the same number. And it's at that point where you say, I know you said you wanted 200. Nobody's gotten more than 150. No one has. And in fact, here's 4 houses that are on the market right now, exactly like yours. And they're all priced at 150. So tell me again, why 200? Because a lot of times what happens is, their position is indefensible. And if they're like, look, you're either going to get me 200,000 or I'm going to go find somebody that'll get me 200,000, then at that point, I'm going to walk away.
but I'm never going to walk away in the very beginning. The dialogue I've shown you today, I can't think of a time, unless you uncover just this tasteful human being. I can't think of a time I'm going to walk away. I'll walk away on pricing though, in the second part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you bet. Any other questions?
Yes, we have one more question. So this person says, Wayne, I am a very type A person, mostly working with buyers, but want to work as a lister. So listening is imperative. I get that. Did you personally have to change your over talking when you started?
Wow, what a great question. Yes. You have to grasp, and this is why I'm really imploring people as we go through this to role play. You have to just get into asking questions and writing down answers. That will keep you from over talking to a certain degree. Ask the question and have a pen and pad with you and start writing down their answers. But yes, people don't listen on the seller side of the equation specifically. They don't want and this is what happens a lot, because I've competed against these people for a long time. But this is what happens a lot is the unsaid message is sit down, shut up, hang on, let me tell you how we're going to do this, because I do a lot of these from the agent perspective. And when someone sits down and really starts just asking questions, they're going, man, tell me what you're trying to do here. Why that? Why that number, right? Why that timing? What else is important to you? Whoever you hire, whether it's me or someone else, what do you expect from your realtor? What can we expect from you? Getting that down and writing down those answers, that will accomplish the talking over people. It's a skill set. There's no doubt about it. It's a skill set that has to be practiced, but yes, it will help you. I hope that answered your question. Any other questions, Matt?
I think that is it. And what I can tell you, being Wayne's daughter, he has mastered that more than just in his professional life. That is how he is at home as well. We have to pull his opinion out of him.
Yeah, it's true. Trust me, I have an opinion on everything. And I've worked really hard over the years to not throw my opinion around and not over talk and just listen. And it's a skill set that I experienced with some mentors of mine, that I really enjoyed the process when someone was just listening. So yeah, I would challenge you to just listen and take notes. Taking notes helps. And you don't have to. I mean, you can ask people if you want to, but slowing conversations down is key. Definitely key. All right. If there's no other questions, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We'll be sending the information out, the PowerPoints, the supplemental information. That'll be going out to you on Friday. And thank you so much for this Wednesday. And we will see you on February the 9th. And we will talk pricing. Again, guys, if you have any questions at all, whoops, I went the wrong way. Don't wait. You don't have to wait for the next Wednesdays with Wayne. You can send me an email at wayne@stfconsult.com. I'll get the answer back to you. You can send me a text. That's my cell phone. You can send me a text. All right. I want to try to help you. I'm very passionate about the fact that I want to try to help the people that I come in contact with be better and have better lives as realtors. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great day.